there are tools for people who are in this space, who would like to produce more. Then you have tools, you have incentives for them so that they can continue to, produce. And then, of course, we have the protection of now this is not protectionism, but of course, how to protect voluntary market exchanges and contracts so that there's no forceful means of exchanging goods and services and values in the market space. Let me know if I'm too fast, but because this is fasting period, I have the right to be as fast as I can. And that's because, again, we have a lot to cover. But do let me know if this is going too fast for you, because we move on to telling you the fact that advocacy is not about noise making. It's about building an architectural framework for reform. Advocacy is not about making noise. It's not about trending. It's not about being on the #1 chart. No, it's about building. It's like an architecture of reform. So if you are familiar with the architecture sector, you will realize that architecture is not just something you just dabble into. It's a lot of processes. So it's not just shouting, screaming, energetic things. No, it's not. It goes beyond that. It goes into a careful planning. And that's what we are going to be looking at today. That's what, training policy advocates will look like in this session for today. So let's get right into it. How do we now understand market-based solutions versus state-led intervention? Very quickly, you will see that the best way to fight poverty is to unleash enterprise and not to expand bureaucracy. It's not to, sorry, just a second. Okay, good. The best way to fight poverty is to unleash enterprise and not to expand bureaucracy. That is, we are trying to reduce the process, not essentially to increase the processes that are involved in carrying this out. Now, for market-based solutions, here we are looking at mechanisms of the invisible hands of the market. So we're looking at demand, we're looking at supply, we're looking at price signals, we're looking at competition, we're looking at entrepreneurship that can solve social and economic problems. Now, flip that into the state-led interventions, you now see a top-down bureaucratic decision-making. Someone at the top must approve before it becomes possible, and then there is the government funding, there's the central planning. On the other hand, for market-based solutions, we see incentives for consumers, we see incentives for producers, we see investors willing to engage in a decentralized system such that there's what we call market disruption. But on the other hand, we see corruption. Now, that does not mean that there's no corruption on this side. But because this other side is highly regulated, people can hide under the structure to exploit and extort people. Therefore, it is easier for corruption to thrive here in state-led interventions when you compare it to market-based solutions. Let me give you a very, very quick example of this. Recently, we uncovered how I would have loved to mention the name of that country, but I will not, due to privacy issues, how a citizen extorted citizens of his own country, because he was working with immigration, and then, let's put some context. Let's use Nigeria so that we don't play too abstract. Let us assume that the fee to renew your visa or your passport is 10 naira, right? And then because I am the immigration officer, because that guy was the immigration officer, he charged people 30 naira. And you see, because that activity is bringing more money to the government's purse, 10 naira goes to government, 20 naira comes to the guy, over the time, because that brought a lot of money to government. So they reduced the number of time. For instance, you're supposed to renew your visa every 2 years. So it now became, you need to renew your visa every year so that you are able to stay and all of that. So this guy makes 10 naira on 20 naira on every citizen of his country that is abroad in that particular country. And only for bank to, call for a review, and then they wanted to, I think there was a contract with an initial bank and the contract was expired. So they need to move or renew that bank's contract. So they needed to do a complete financial review. And only to realize that, yes, we have been getting our 10 naira all along, but people kept on saying they have been paying 30 naira all along. Now, how is this possible? It is because the system in a state-led intervention has the capacity to accommodate very, very deep corruption. Now, let me give you a flip side market-based solution of this same conversation. So you see, I sell wares under the bridge, and my wares cost 10 naira per unit. And then if you take that same ware to a boutique, I'm sure if there are Nigerians on this call, you will realize that the same product, say a shirt, and then you take it to a boutique, probably you wash it, you iron it, and then you add some other things to it. You can make times 5 of the same money. Now, that's one. Two, try move that same product from one point to another, from that same bridge, move it to the next junction, add 20 naira, and then you are able to sell. So anybody can become rich by selling practically anything. In the 90s, early 2000s, Lagos was considered no man's land because you can get rich overnight just by selling water. I mean, ordinary water. You know, as simple as that is. Because nobody is regulating it, there is no organization, there's no association, there is no president of, there's no paperwork. Just put your water by the roadside. People testing in the traffic get water and they pay. That's it. And you make your money, and that's how to resolve a challenge. We are solving an economic problem by creating solutions. Unlike the other side, where we have state-led interventions, where it's bureaucratic, there's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of central planning. Someone at the top must make a decision for every other person to align, and then there's inefficiency playing in, and then there's what we call rent seeking. They like to, would you like to? I mean, you now bring in your people so that they are the ones getting the contract and XYZ, and then there's perverse incentives. That's where we now look at extreme monopolies and then crony capitalism, which does not represent the market-based solutions that we are advocating for. Now, let's move quickly to how market solutions differs from state-led. Like I said earlier, this market-based solutions are incentive-driven. If you can get the work done, you get the money. On the other hand, it is coercion-based. Because you are a railway officer, you have to go to work. It does not happen on the other side, where people can choose to work from home. People can choose to work from wherever they are, as long as they get the job done. On this side of central planning, on the side of state-led intervention, we have central planning, and on this other side, we have decentralized decision making. You can spontaneously take a decision to buy, to use XYZ amount of funds to invest in a bond, and to do that same activity on the other side is a different ball game. Then there's on this side of market-based solution, there's the consumer choice, and then on this side there's the bureaucratic allocation. Where there's efficient resource use here, most times we have wasteful and spoiled resources. I mean, you can count numerous abandoned projects on state-led interventions, whereas it is very rare for you to find an uncompleted bank building. It is very rare. I mean, if you have ever seen an uncompleted bank building, please let me know in the comment section. If you have ever seen an uncompleted bank building, a building belongs to a bank and they did not complete building it, and you know where that building is anywhere in the world, please let me know. An uncompleted bank building. Okay, I've not seen anybody. I've not seen any comments. Now, if you know any uncompleted government project in the comment, in fact, just type yes in the comment section. If you know, not that you want to mention the government or where the project is, but you know that, okay, this is so fast. Ahmed Sani, an abandoned government project. Okay, Ahmed Sani is the only one who has seen an abandoned project before. Okay. I'll wait a little bit to be sure that I'm not speaking only to Ahmed Sani on this call. Who else has seen an abandoned government project? 4, 5, 10 years, the same structure is there, not completed, and is not moving forward. Any other person? Are there people on this board?
The chat
Yeah,
is
Joy.
disabled.
Yeah,
The chat
take that again, please, Joy.
The chat is disabled, so we're not able
Who
to type.
disabled the chat? Please allow people to type in. We will not continue until people can type in. Ahmed, please help people, make people have the opportunity to type in their input. Please try again now. Can you? Can you type in now? Anybody? Aha. Thank you. Is this correct? Okay. Aha, thank you. Oh, please, I hope you are responding to if this is true, then we have a problem at hand that you have seen an abandoned government project, and you see these projects are built with taxpayers' money, expensive money gone into such projects and is gone and is not completed. Whoever the contractor is has, spend that money and that's it. So finally, there's entrepreneurship. There is more money coming in here. There's people trying to, innovate, come up with new ideas on this side. And on the other side, we have regulations and restrictions. And that's the broad difference of market-based solutions and state-led intervention. All right, we continue to let you know that when government becomes both the referee and the striker, you are not expected to get a fair game. When government is both, they are playing in a game that they are regulating, then you, who are the citizen, you should not expect a fair game. So that shows you how clearly defined challenge we have when we do not embrace this market-based policy advocacy solutions that we are talking about. Now, how do you identify policy failures and how do you propose market alternatives? Initially, I wanted to do a this versus them again, but I refrained from that temptation to do identify a policy failure and then propose market alternatives. No, but rather, we're going to look at how did we get in the first place? How do we now recognize policy failure? How do we go about finding out what exactly this means? Policy failure exists when government interventions produce unintended consequences or they exacerbate the problem that they intend to solve. I want to tell you a very quick story, and I want you to let me know if you have heard this story before. The story of a project that was supposed to be carried out in a village, a water project. Just quickly let me know if you know that story already. A water project for a village, and where the distance between the river and the the residential area is quite a distance. And then it is perceived that people lacked water, and then they cannot have access to quality or potable water. So the project was to bring the water to the people, so that they don't have to trek long distance. Nobody has heard of this story before up to this point. Am I talking to Gen Zs? Okay, I'll continue with the story. So how do you now understand if you have not heard the story before? I'll continue still because I'm not a very good storyteller, right? But I'm learning. So the project was now to bring water closer to the people, and they dug a borehole in the center of the village, and then there was water. Now you can literally, see where the water project is from your house because the residential area is clustered together. Do you know what happened? So they did that project, and then they cut the ribbon, and then they went home. So after some time, they came back to the village only to realize that people are beginning to, go the far distance to fetch water again. And then they asked, what's the challenge? Why do you people, why did they literally spoiled the project? Destroyed that water project and then returned back to fetching water. Can anybody tell me why they did that? Why do you think the people did not embrace that water project? Anybody? You want to use the chat box or mute? Yes, you are allowed. We need to find out how we ended up how we end up with policy failing. Yes. Why do you think the people abandoned or destroyed the water project and then went back trekking to a far distance to fetch water? Anybody? Somebody must talk. Somebody must say something. Somebody must respond. Yes. Please use the chat box or feel free to unmute yourself. Somebody should respond. I'm waiting. We won't continue until you respond to why you think that project did not, or that policy, that water project policy did not scale through. Anybody? Anyways, I'll tell you because we have limited time to spend on the call. Oh, sorry, you have not heard this. You didn't hear the story clearly. Oh, I'll tell the story for the last time. Just because of Kamal. And this is how the story is. There's a village, they lacked water because the river was far. So government decided to bring water closer to the people. So they dug boreholes and run pipes to get water to the people where they are living so that they don't have to trek to the village, to the stream or the river, which is a far distance. Now, after some time, they came back and realized that they had destroyed the water project and they went back to trekking for a long distance to get water. The question is, why did that policy fail? Why did that project fail? Yes, I hope you get it now, Kamal. So that we are able to understand why policies fail. Yes.
Hello everyone. For me, I think the reason why the policy failed is because they didn't consult the people in the society. That's why they feel the project was denied by the society. Thank you.
Yes, that's correct. They didn't consult them. Now, if they had consulted the people, what would you think the people would have said?
Okay, for me, I think if they consulted the people would rather request if the water they can use for farming or any other use. I think they denied them the other uses of water. Yeah.
Good. Now let me tell you the real reason why this water.
My check is because you said the government dug boreholes and there they could have probably pumped the water straight from the river, which the people are used to. So yeah, they never consulted them. So they just came up with policies that were fit for the government and like what the people are used to. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Fantastic. Now, when they now consulted the people, this is the real reason why the project failed. So you see, the period of time spent between the house and the river. You know, most times in those kind of villages, it's the women who go to fetch water, women and children, right? So this is the time that the women have to gist. I hope you know what gisting means. I mean, to talk. These are talks you don't say. I mean, you can't say those kind of, you can't have those kind of conversation where your children or where your husband is. It's a kind of talk. I'm not sure they are female on this call. They call it girls talk. A gist on the way to the stream or to the river. Now, when you have brought the river to the center of the village, there is no way to gist. There's nobody to talk to. So their social life is gone. That's one. Two, the period of time that, you send children out to go and fetch water, there's a time for fetching water, either in the morning or in the close to the evening. In the morning to cook food, in the evening to cook food and bath, and then in the evening, of course, again to cook food, and then have to bath, I mean, probably in the night. Now, when family, I mean, the husband and wife have probably two children. If they say, oh, go and get water from the river, when the distance between the house and the river is to do other duties, other duties that they are doing, you should. Now, if you take that same water and you put it very close to the house, the window frame of time I want to do is they have to so that the women can gist, and then the women, husband and wife can river to get water. So not necessarily because they don't need the water. Yes, they needed water, but they don't want it close to their house. They want an activity that will take women out of the house, keep them out so that they can talk, or keep the children away for a longer period of time. So it's beyond farming, it's beyond, but primarily, yes, they didn't consult them because they had other reasons why they did not want that water too close to them. Now, how do you now identify a policy failure? How do we now say policy has failed? When you examine the gap between the intended outcome is let people have access to water. Then what is the actual result? Did they have access to water? The answer is no. So that means the policy has failed. If you are able to identify perverse incentives, being created as a result of that policy, then it is said that the policy has failed. Again, to identify a policy failure, you need to assess whether the market alternatives were crowded out or not. Now, did this reduce the number of now, if women talk on their way to the farm or they fight, now, if women go on trips to the stream, there is tendency for them to gist, and there's tendency for them to also fight. If they fight, the men have more cases to resolve, helping them to retain their leadership in the society. But when there is no longer a fight, nobody is killing somebody with a bad eye. Nobody is hissing at somebody on their way to the stream. Nobody called anybody any name. There's no fight to settle. There's no quarrel to resolve. It eradicated the role of the men even in the society. So you see, it crowded out the alternatives that will allow more people to get involved, right? So that can point your radar into what made a particular policy to fail. Again, just a sec, to tell you, show you how or what makes policies to fail, or how you can identify a failed policy, is to also realize how much of competition was disallowed in the process. Now, when policy allow lesser people to participate, then it is highly possible for that policy to fail very quickly. Now, we move to identifying, okay, so if there are more laws, if there are more rules, more stringent restrictions, especially in this time now, we are looking at if you are looking at trade, and then you see more smaller businesses collapsing, and then moving out, and then phasing out of the system, then that means there's a policy failure somewhere, where there's unemployment, where there's high level of smuggling, minimum wage reduction and all of those things, then there is what we call policy failure. Again, how do we identify policy failure? Is by, how do we now resolve this? Is by proposing market alternatives. Is by what? Proposing, where is this, my slide? Proposing market alternatives. Okay. Now, how do we now propose market alternatives? We need to emphasize on consumer choice. What do the people want? What do people really want to spend their money on? What do they really want to buy? What do they really want to consume? If you don't find out what people really want to consume, do they really want to trek far to get water, or do they really want free education? If the answer is yes, then you go in that direction. Now, can this allow people to compete? There's no room for competition. Then policy is about to fail, and introducing competition into a thing can make, is a very sound market alternative. Again, you need to design incentive compatible mechanism. How do people get, how does the competition get interesting? Is it winner takes all, or the smart people get more profit? You need to reduce barrier for entry people. New players need to be able to come into the market and compete with old players. If they come in with two things, innovation and creativity, yes, you can compete with with old players in the same field of business. Again, is there transparency, and the rules available, are they enforceable? If not, it will be difficult for you to propose market alternatives as a policy advocate. Next, let's look at the tools that you need for effective policy advocacy. The tools that you need for effective policy advocacy. Before we delve into that, remember that effective policy advocacy only requires more than knowledge. It requires strategy, it requires persuasion, it requires coalition building. Those three things are very important: strategy, persuasion, and coalition building. About 48 hours in Nigeria, the opposition party in Nigeria they are building a coalition. That is beautiful. I hope they're able to sustain it. That's for politics. But you see, they're also going to move the polity in their favor, because everybody now sees two wings: ruling class and the opposition people. Right now, if you are able to that requires strategy. You need to persuade people and make them see reasons why this route is good. Now let's quickly delve into these tools that you need. On your screen, you will find messaging and framing. You need to craft a narrative that resonates with emotions, not just data. We'll get to data very soon, and I'll tell you how important data is. But you need to craft narratives that resonate with emotions, not just data. You need to frame economic freedom as human empowerment. You also need to use relatable language. You need to reduce red tapeism and then bring in, deregulation. Now, when you have a narrative that is very relatable, you now need to personalize abstract policies with real life stories. I'll give you two stories and then we'll move on. Some times ago, we used to have a challenge of, in fact, we still do have challenge of leadership in our society. And, oftentimes when it is election time, people are tilted to vote for people who can go very, very emotional. And then you see, for state-led intervention, those who are interested in capturing the state, they use these tools very well. So you see politicians, they know how to tell stories, good stories, and then they will craft that. One came and told us, when I went to school with my barefoot, when I was going to school, I had no shoes. Oh my God. Because the population is comprised of a lot of people who struggle to make it. They say, yes, this kind of person is not interested in the money. In fact, he's a university lecturer. Yes, so he's well read. Before now, we used to have not well read people. People just understand administration and governance. They do not know much of what goes on in the classroom. But this one is in fact, he's a doctorate degree holder. Yes, that was the first time we had a doctorate degree holder contesting for the #1 seat in Nigeria. And he said he had no shoes when he was going to school. That was a very good narrative, right? Aha. And then very soon we had another one. That narrative did not last for more than 8 years. And then we had another person come up and say, this time around, this guy came up with, I have done it before, I can do it again. I was once a military, and people, he was not even the one saying it himself. It was people saying, oh, do you know this man? He was a former head of state, and then was a military leader who did not tolerate nonsense. In fact, in 10 months or less, everybody will behave themselves in the streets. Nobody will throw trash on the road. Everybody will just cooperate because this guy is a no-nonsense guy. All right? No problem. That was just a narrative. And he pushed it. And he sold. This guy became president. Not quite long, we needed another president again. And then they come up with, this guy has suffered. He has allowed other people to rule. This is his turn. Allow him to rule. And people gave him because it was his turn. Narratives that can relate with your emotion. The guy came up with a town hall meeting, and where he literally was the eldest. He had made it possible for other people to rise to wherever they are. That was a narrative that could work, and they got it well. And yes, he became president. He's currently the president, where I am a citizen, and you see, they use it well. Messaging and framing, storytelling. The next is for you to build coalition. You need to work with think tanks, civil society, business leaders, journalists, and reform-minded policymakers. I would have loved to look at certain policies, but when I realized that this cohort was for a Kenya cohort, I had to rework my analogies and illustrations. So I may not be able to use some of the policies I would have loved to use. For instance, I would have loved to use the Not Too Young to Run bill. You know how it took them about 10 years to get reform-minded policymakers to key into the ideas, and how they had to bring in a lot of think tanks and civil society members to help spread the message and solidify it. You need to build multi-sector alliances that can amplify your voice. You can't say you have no business with a particular sector, and then whatever happens there is not your business. No, you need to also build alliance with them, so that whenever you speak, your voice can be amplified by their works, because essentially policy advocates do not really have that large network that every other sector can have. Then there is more. The more the better, actually. And then lastly is media engagement. You need to use all traditional, digital, new age, write op-ed, use infographics, post sessions. Do what it will take for people to hear about it. Communicate this policy loud and clear. These are tools you need to build effective policy advocacy. And finally, for your policies to work, you need what is called legislative influence. You need to learn how to prepare policy brief, how to prepare white papers, how to schedule meetings with lawmakers and bureaucrats. These guys, there's something I'm going to, I hope I'm able to share with you before the end of this conversation, what we call inside lobbying and outside advocacy. You need to leverage on consultation, public hearings. There are information that you need to know that you will not know if you don't know who knows it. There are information that you need to know that you will not know if you don't know the person that knows that information. It might be useful for you, but you won't know if you don't know people that know about that information, because you can't know everything. So you need to, build your tentacles, spread it wide, so that you're able to build an effective policy advocacy. Again, you cannot advocate for people that you cannot engage. If you're advocating for, let's say, what can you possibly advocate for? Say child rights, and then you don't like to be around children. How then are you a child advocate? You like to advocate for improved educational policies, and you are not an academic yourself. It makes it difficult. You need to build and resonate with your community. And it's not just where change happens. It is you who determines what happens in the community. You are the one that will determine the kind of community you belong to, and you are the one that will determine the kind of change and advocacy you're able to lead in that community. I bring to you some few case studies, and the first on our case study for today is the telecommunication deregulation in Nigeria. You see, in Nigeria, before 2001, we have less than 500,000 landlines. There's this, telephone, the one you put in your ear. I don't know. Don't have one here. The landline. But because we wanted to open up the market, and then we had a leader who wanted to, also get more competition to the market. Then, we had private firms like MTN, Airtel, coming to the market to play. And today, over 150 million Nigerians are connected. In fact, some people have more than one line. Some people have more than one line of a particular network. They have someone like Ahmed. I'm sure Ahmed has more than one MTN line, And that's possible because there is enough to go around. Compared to landlines, where you have to use wires to connect, one, unit to the other, and all of those and this sector contributes largely to the GDP of the country, of the economy. How, bringing in income from, because most of these telecommunication outlets or outfits are not Nigerian based. So they pay tax, and they pay it well, such that the government benefits very, very well from this. My second case study is outside Nigeria, and it's the charter schools in the United States, where free market advocates for promoted school choice in a way to improve public education. And it was publicly funded, but independently operated. You see, this is where it becomes beautiful. I wanted to put more pictures here, but I wish I had the liberty, freedom to do that. Every school is the charter school. They have about hundreds of them. but it is independently operated. But it created a competition and then innovation that helped boost the education sector even in the United States. Now, we are already moving into that angle. In Nigeria, there is a filling station. I've not, they didn't pay for this, but I'll mention their name. Their name is Bovas. Now, Bovas has disrupted the usual way oil and gas business is being done in Nigeria, because now Bovas is one of the very first few private-owned company that sells license. Now you can buy the name, not necessarily that the company builds the firm. I hope you get what I'm saying. That you can independently create a unit, a filling station, and then name it Bovas because you have a license to run it as a Bovas company. So before now, what we have is NNPC, doing this largely, and this is state-led. But now Bovas is doing it, and Bovas sells prices that are fair to the market, to the people, any day, anytime. Bovas has products, has quality product, and sells the market people-friendly price compared to their counterparts in the public sector, the NNPC guys who sell exorbitant prices. They don't, bother. Sometimes even the quality is contestable. But you see, this is a situation of how free market based policy as well. My final case study will be with the one you must be familiar with, which is the mobile money in the eastern part of the continent. So rather than wait for government banks like we do here in Nigeria, people have pushed for inclusive banking, such that your banking is linked with your phone number. And now we now have M-Pesa, right? Where several millions of all of you in the East can enjoy moving money just with your mobile number. And that's what, it brings more job. It makes it easier. It brings competition. All you need to do is just to move it with your mobile line. And then we are good. Then banks are reserved for what banks is supposed to do: investment, shareholding, all of those things are concerned banking, not necessarily keeping my money, but how do I make more money? How do I invest my money? How do I real estate? Let bank do that one. But when it comes to moving money for my business, I need to be able to do it fast and as quick as possible. Not you in the bank waiting for my turn on for a teller person to attend to me. And that's the kind of policy that is, bred financial inclusion among people in East Africa. Don't just criticize the policy. If there's something you do not like, you can redesign it, right? If there's any problem that you have seen, don't just become problem analysts. You need to propose a better way to address those problems. You can become the bridge that can, link ideas with implementation. Most times, what government, not that they don't know what to do, sometimes they really don't have the political will to do it. But you can become the bridge between ideas and implementation if you learn how to develop your market-based policy proposal properly. Because at the end of the day, if you cannot develop a market-based policy proposal, it will be difficult for you to move those ideas from your head into what become reality for implementation. How do you do this? Top on the list is for you to identify the problem. What public issue persists despite all state-led efforts? I identified one about 2 months ago, and it's the challenge of transportation here in Ibadan, Nigeria. And you see, I identified 5 peak points: raining season, morning rush, night rush, special days, and off days. Now, if you are in Ibadan, you want to move on a Sunday morning, everywhere is dry. It's as if there are no transport workers in Ibadan. Once it rains, the amount of transport increases times 10, times 2, times 3 because of rain. Once it is peak period, school rush hour time, the amount, and government had tried all what they can, but the problem still exists, right? The next thing is you do a root cause analysis. Is this problem a problem of regulation? Is it a problem of subsidy? Is it a problem of monopoly? Or is it a lack of incentives? Now you now go to, how do I now propose a market-based organization? Do we deregulate? Do we liberalize? So what I'm planning to do, I don't know if how many of you are going to support me on this, is that I want to bring in vehicles that will move people from point A to point B. So irrespective of where you are going. Now, this is how I think it will work. So you see, people want to go to a particular place that motorists do not want to go. So you say, I'm going to, you say, no, I'm not going there. They have choices of places to go. And you leave people stranded at bus stops. So my strategy is to liberalize the system. This bus is going around this town. As long as you are on this main road, we will go there. So this is, and it's not going to wait. Now, government has tried to intervene, but you see their own buses. We stay at a bus stop. Wait until the bus is full. This one will not stop. And we will have a lot of it. So that if you miss this one, another one is coming in the next 1 minute. Now, we need to also encourage private sector. So I'm not going to ask government to come and invest. I'm going to ask private car manufacturers in Nigeria to invest in this. One, it will help them to produce more. We will buy them, so it will make sales for them. 3, it will put their cars more on the road. The reason why you see so many Toyota, so many Mazda, so many Benz on the road is because we kept on buying them. Now let's start buying what we produce. So you keep seeing them on the road. So we, encourage. That's my idea. Now, how do I now do this? I need local data and case studies. Now, so I've mounted research guys at points to measure how frequent people take transport, how those 5 peak area times work, and then how much of stress do people encounter when they're trying to move from point A to point B, so that we are able to back up our claims with comparative analysis, right? Now, my target audience, I'm messaging here, I'm framing the proposal to the Oyo State House of Assembly, and I'm also asking civil societies to join in this. And to answer this question is, how does the ordinary people benefit from this? Ordinary people benefit from this in that they're able to move from point A to point B irrespective of the time. Whether it's raining, whether it's in the morning, whether it's in the night, whether it's a Sunday, whether it's a Monday morning, people can move from point A to point B without restriction. Now, what is the implementation strategy? What do I need to get people engaged? Some laws need to change. Yes, there's the park management system, a partnership needed. Yes, if you're able to identify this step by step, you'll be able to create, a policy proposal for yourself. And lastly, I'll leave you with this acronym. I call it ACTIVE. And when you check very well, you realize that ACTIVE stands for ACTIVE. And the first on the list is for you to assess the issue. Like I said, where is the gap? Who is being affected? Do I need to consult stakeholders? Do I need to identify allies and affected? We don't see allies and enemies. We see allies and affected parties. Yes, some people will lose their job if we do that project, or if we go on pushing that policy. Then you now need to tailor the message to speak the language of the decision maker and say, oh, Mr. Governor or Mr. President, you're going to be leaving a legacy behind. People will talk about it, and hey, that's what they want to hear, right? Speak the decision maker's language. You implement your strategy by writing campaigns, leading campaigns, writing petitions, or engaging the media, and then probably holding town hall meetings. Then you very, very important, you need to validate with the data. And that's the process, like I said, that we are at the moment, so that you can strengthen your argument with evidence, not by just shouting, right? Then you can evaluate and then do it all over again until you achieve the results you want to achieve. When you engage wisely and then you advocate boldly, you're not just pushing policy, you are preserving posterity. In the next 10, 20 years, Ibadan will not be looking like this because there will be enough movement to move people from point 1 to point 2, right? Good. Now, like I said, I was going to share with you how you can engage with policymaker to influence change. Yes, this is it. Now you need to identify policy windows. Policy windows, for instance, like budget season, and then you need to familiarize yourself with the legislative calendar. There are times where they are not in session. There are times when they're out of session. If you don't understand these dynamics, You just be pushing for the wrong things, for the right things at the wrong time. Now you need to use, yes, this is it. Insider and outsider tactics. For the insider, it's quiet lobbying. You don't need to make noise when you're in the house, in the chambers. You need to know who aligns with you. But then when you're outside, you need to mobilize. There's a lot that comes with the mobilization. There is the localized version of it. I mean, when I say localized version, I mean the crude street peculiar way of doing things. Yes. So, for instance, we went for a project in a community, and then when we got there, the first time we requested to see the community leader, they didn't allow us to see him. They took us to a place, and then they listened to what we wanted to say, and then they said he's not around, that we should come back. So they wanted, the first time they told us we should leave and that he's not around and that we'll come back. We left, and I told my guys, this man is around. They don't just want us to see him yet. And they didn't agree with me. So we went back the second time they asked us to come. And they said, oh, he's around now. So when he came out, he hosted us in his call it a sitting room now. And there were chairs there. And he said, and they told us that, oh, here, strangers don't sit on chairs on their first visit. They sit on the floor. And my guys were like, oh, we can't sit on the floor. I said, guys, we sit on the floor. And we sat on the floor. And the man, was talking to us for about 2 hours. And we're sitting on the floor. The next time we came, that was the third time now. They now told us why they did what they did the first time and then the second time. The first time was to check for our patience. So if we had been visibly angry that they told us to leave and come back, they won't attend to us the second time. Then the second time that they told us to sit on the floor, that if we had complained or we walked out or we refused to sit and we stand, it would have been considered rude. And there was nothing we want to say that would be accepted because we've been seen as rude people. So when you are inside, you learn quiet lobbying, find out who can agree with you. When you're outside, you mobilize the people, right? Policy change is a relay race. Policy change is if you want to change a particular policy, you have to make sure you're able to build a system that can make it continue. It's a continuous process. You don't just finish a policy change in 1 day or in 1 year. In fact, sometimes there are some policies that will outlive you at the end of the day. So you need to build your structure, your community well. You need to build, around yourself, advocates that can, pass the baton to another people so that you move it from advocate A until it becomes eventual policies that you want to see on the street. Let me remind you that God will not do by miracle what he has empowered you to do by strategy. Now I've taught you, or you have learned some of the strategies you need to engage and to build and to come up with market-based policy advocacy. It's now your turn to go and build, right? Don't expect God to do that job for you. It is at this point that I would take a break to accommodate your questions. Thank you so much for listening. Let's take questions now. I'm waiting for your questions. I would wait 1 more minute, 1 whole minute to take your questions. Questions, ask now where you're not clear.
All right. Do we have any questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Bayonle, for that very interesting session. Do we have any questions? We have been listening for about an hour now. Do we have any questions? If you have, now is the time to ask. If you don't have a question and you have a comment, please go on to make a comment. You can raise your hand. I'm going to call on you to make a comment. If you have a differing argument as to what has been taught, you can raise it, and Mr. Bayonle is going to clarify for us. Okay, Bernice, you can go on to speak.
All right. Good evening. Thank you for the thought-provoking presentation. I have a question with regards to the most effective ways of policy advocacy in this day and age where we see the legislators being the policy makers are more into making policies that serve them. So yeah, sometimes even appealing to their maybe emotions or like using stories doesn't really work in this day and age. I'm just wondering, like, how do you strike a balance? Because we are seeing more and more policies which are being created that it's more about self-interest. So how do you strike that balance? And yeah, maybe just to understand, maybe even in your country, what are some of the strategies people are using right now? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Strategies that people are using right now is to build a network. I've mentioned it earlier. You need to build around yourself a network. Now, if people don't know what you're talking about, if you don't have a community, and that's where the other part of this conversation lies in how to ensure that the public and the media understands the policy you are trying to advocate for. So you see, oftentimes policymakers who are already parliamentarians do not have any problem with what you are about to tell them. The only thing they have is, how does this affect them? What do they stand to gain by the policy proposal you are bringing forward to them? And this is where it becomes interesting. You need to find an alignment. You need to find a middle ground. You need to find a common ground that works for both parties without you compromising on the value of the policy you're advocating for. This is very, very dicey most times. And sometimes, yes, you can let the policy lie. You can relax on the push if you do not find parliamentarians that are ready to push for you. Yes. And of course, you can push through several ways. It's not young to run bill that I was trying to tell you about at that time. Did not go through in the Senate. It went through in the House of Representatives. Till tomorrow, there are some certain states that did not adopt that not young to run bill. But because he had 2/3 majority, it was ready to fly. So you see, not everybody will agree with you. Not all politicians, not all policymakers, not all parliamentarians will see what you are seeing. You only need to find that common ground. You need to know somebody that knows somebody that will help you to talk to somebody that will tell the main person about, and then they will ask you to come, they invite you to the office. The strategy is about building community. It's about building community. And that's the other part of the conversation we didn't touch today, which is building for yourself community. And that's what we call community engagement. As policy advocates, there's little or very next to nothing you can do if you do not have people that can push for you, both inside and outside. And I hope that answers your questions, Bernice.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, in the absence of question, remember that everybody responds to love, and in politics, advocacy is the love language that every politician understands. And if you don't make yourself to sit at the table, one day you will be on the menu. If you don't advocate for a policy today, there's a policy that is going to restrict you from advocating for policies in the future. So you will be on the menu if you don't find for yourself a seat at the table. Policy is not just a paper in a file. It is the price of tomatoes in the market. It is the state of security on your street. It's the future of your siblings, and you need to own it. If you don't remember anything, remember that policy advocacy is the job of everybody. It's a very, very important aspect of our society that we need to pay serious attention to. You need to now tilt your mind to begin to advocate for not just opposing the government or big government, but you need to start looking at better alternatives, how to provide clarity and bring in creativity and lead it with courage. In a country like Nigeria, where state-led, solutions have failed, in fact, largely in Africa, due to infrastructure, employment, social justice, political will, our generation must now rise to be equipped with a market-based thinking, a free market mindset that can bring in competition, bring in disruptive market, bring in innovation, bring in adaptability, bring in spontaneous thinking, and make prosperity very abundant for many people to have access to. So listeners, I want to thank you very much for listening to this conversation today. And if you have any further questions or comments or contributions, you have my details there on your screen. Thank you so much to Face of Liberty International for this opportunity to speak on the fourth cohort of the Free Market Fellowship in 2025, the Kenya session on this topic for today. Thank you so much for listening. Pass the mic back now to Ahmed. Over to you.
All right, Mr. Bayonle, thank you so much for that very interesting session. The conversation off the meeting, obviously, and go on to send him a message or email him, whichever one. I'm very certain he would respond. Into a close now. I'll be sharing the slides with you via the group, our WhatsApp community, and for those of us that joined us late, to be shared on the WhatsApp community as well. So thank you very much for joining, and do enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, Mr. Bayonle.